Today we're going to talk about program edit mode. As with most things on the MPC Renaissance, you can do this from the hardware or from the software. If we go to the software page, we can simply click and drag onto a pad to load the sound. We can load the sound from the project information, or we can load from the file browser. The difference being that the project information is already loaded into RAM. We can also go to our browser, click on a sound, and load it on the current pad. We can repeat this to set up a program. Let's do that now. As I'm scrolling down, I'm loading different sounds onto different pads. Now that I've loaded all of my sounds, I can edit my program. If I go into the program edit mode, as you can see on the top, reflected by the F keys, we can start with the master. We can control the mono or poly, which determines whether or not samples will play at the same time or cut each other off for the whole program. We can adjust the semi-tune or the fine tune of the whole program. We can also set up simultaneous play for each of the pads, which will determine if one pad is hit, that another pad will play an adjacent sound. As we move to samples, we can load up different sounds. We can tune those sounds. And we can adjust the level. And as we see, this is reflected for all 4 slots that can be loaded with 4 different sounds. For each pad, we can load more than one sound. Now, as you see, I have 4 sounds all playing from this one pad, which can individually be tuned or adjust the level for each of the sounds. Now that we have our samples loaded, we can actually affect how each of those samples plays, being determined by the velocity. We can set a velocity range for each of those sounds. So that if I hit the pad at full velocity, the kick plays. If I play the pad softly, the hi-hat plays, and any combination thereof. As we move to the filter section, we can select the type of filter we want to use, where you have over 20 different types of filters to select from. We can affect the cutoff, the resonance, and how much the envelope affects that sound. We can also go to the modulation sources. We can have effect on the filter envelope, and the amp envelope. We can also move over to the play mode, which affects the way that the sound is played back. We can set mute groups. Let's set that to 1. Let's set this one to 1, so that now each pad cuts each other off. We can affect the layer, the way the sample's played, if it's one shot, where the whole sample will play, or if it's note off, which means that it will only play as long as I hold down the pad. We also have mono and poly selection for each individual pad. Underneath of that, we have the velocity sensitivity section, will give us various modulation possibilities depending on how hard we hit the pad. We can affect the pitch, the attack, the amp, or the pan, depending on the velocity of the pad. Underneath of that, we have our LFO section, which can be synced to MIDI and also assigned to 4 different sections. We can affect our pitch, our filter, our amp, and our pan, all with an LFO. And lastly, we have our effects section, where we can insert 4 different effects per pad. Now let's check out Pad Assign. When I hit the Pad Assign button, I can easily assign samples to each of the given pads. And there's a variety of ways I can do this. I can use the scroll wheel, I can use the plus or minus, or I can use the cue links. Also in the pad assign mode, I can assign the velocity colors. This is where I can turn the colors off, or I can group my sounds depending on color. For example, I can make all of my kicks red, all of my snares yellow, and I can make all of my percussion green. Now to exit that mode, I just hit velocity color. Another cool feature is the pad copy. If I hold down Shift and hit pad assign, I can then select a pad and copy that pad to as many pads as I want. If I hit do it, now this sound is on this pad. Thank you for joining us. This should allow you to dive deep into the program edit mode. I'm Young Guru, and make sure that you always check akaipro.com for the latest